Hi everyone, it's Diane.
And I'm Bruce.
And
We're...
Oh goodness, we gotta start this one more time. Hi, I'm Diane.
And I'm Bruce.
And we're
SewBatik.
And today is Fabric Friday. You know, I have been dancing in front of you for the last several weeks with new garment after new garment after new garment. And whether it be rayon or jersey or linen or whatever it happens to be. And so, you know, we just had kind of a thought that we need to step back for just a second. We're going to talk about fabric. We're going to talk about
batik fabric.
Batik fabric and SewBatik fabric. Really bring this all back down to who we are really as SewBatik, and really specifically focus on the art of batik making, what it really means to us. Bruce is really, you know, Bruce is like the guy behind our batik fabrics, and I really want to start and just talk a little bit about, let's reintroduce batiks. What is a batik?
Hi, everybody. I think to answer that question, it's really important to realize that batik is not a particular fabric. A batik making is a process. It's
right.
not a particular fabric. Mm-hmm. And it's really an art form. And it's the art of decorating fabric through the use of dyes and resist to create images on a particular fabric. Mm-hmm. Our batik fabrics are made in the island nation of Indonesia, where this has been going on for generations and generations.
It's really an art form. I mean, it really is an art form.
Absolutely an art form, as you'll see in a few minutes. Mm-hmm. But to summarize, batik making is the use of wax, dyes, and huge cookie cutter stamps to create impressions in the shape of that cookie cutter by creating resists and subsequently dyeing and over dyeing on that resist. Mm-hmm. To create various layers of coloring. We have to utilize not just cotton-based cloths, but any natural fiber can possibly be a candidate for batik making.
I think actually I want to kind of say something about that too. I think a lot of, you know, we get customer service questions and we'll get comments, and somebody will pick up the phone and ask, so do you have this specific batik? And it is a difficult answer. It might be a simple answer if you're a quilter or if you're a garment sewist. You refer to a batik as a type of fabric, like it's cotton, or it's for quilting or something like that. And so now, you know, it is a natural fiber. It can be any batiking. The process of batiking is any natural fiber will take that hand, right? Will take that process.
That is correct if it's been prepped.
Okay.
And it's devoid of any anything like resin or wax or anything that would impede the penetration of dye stuff. But
mm-hmm.
yes, you're correct in that regard. And it's important to understand that, you know, when you ask for batik here at SewBatik, we're not just referring to that tightly woven base cloth made from size 40s or size 50 yarns.
Right.
We have cotton batiks that are on knitted substrates. We have it on woven substrates that are canvas, not just poplin. So it's important to have an additional describer before the word batik.
Batik.
Canvas batik, rayon batik, jersey batik, because batik is a process, not a
Right.
noun.
Right. And I think what we really want to share with you today are a couple of things. And I think the first thing we're going to share with you is how batiks are made. And I think just getting that appreciation for the fact that they are still, they're a human, there's human intervention here. This is not a machine made.
Not by any
Right.
stretch
But
of the
the
imagination.
batik processing is very handmade and it's very traditional. And I think you will really love that process of going through how each step by step, how something is hand dyed, how it is stamped to make a batik cotton here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back and share with you all of the different substrates that we have produced so far with the batiking process and made available to you, as well as a couple of updates on some new inventory that's about to arrive. And we'll take it from there. So what do you think?
I think you're going to enjoy, I hope you're going to enjoy this video. We've put it together and it really explains the art form and the process. So we hope you enjoy it.
We'll be right back. Yeah.
The first step in the manufacturing of our batik is the preparation of the cloth. Of course, we start with a base cloth, which we're going to transform into a beautiful batik. It's produced on a loom or knitting machine and transported in raw form to the batik processing facility. When the freshly woven or knitted cloth arrives at the batik factory, it's not readily usable. It's called gray cloth, spelled G-R-E-I-G-E, at this particular stage. Before wax or dye can be applied to the gray cloth, it must first be prepped by washing it to remove starch and organic residuals, such as seeds, burrs, dirt, and stems. The washing also improves the penetration of the dye. The improved saturation of the dye is one of the reasons why batik fabric looks very similar on the front and back of the cloth. Once the fabric has been prepped, we are ready to decorate the cloth through the use of molten wax and dyes. We do this through stamping or hand drawing on the cloth. Stamping involves the use of a copper stamp called a chap, spelled T-J-A-P, which is created in the image of the batik motifs that it intends to produce. Think of the chap as a cookie cutter on steroids. It's a stamp made with narrow strips of copper that are twisted and shaped into batik designs that are attached to an open metal base. This is a very extensive and underappreciated process. In my opinion, the creation and assembly of the stamp is an independent art form, with the final result often used as a display item or piece of art. The production process for making the stamp begins when a design is sent to the stamp creator as a black and white sketch. At SewBatik, we send our designs as a black and white digital file. Upon receipt, the image is meticulously transferred to grid paper that takes into consideration size and shape limitations of the available manual technology. The thought is to morph the sketch into something that is beautiful, yet also achievable during batik processing. Eventually, there is an agreement between our office and the mill about necessary design modifications. At that point, the stamp is produced using basic tools that you would normally find in a high school geometry class back in the 60s when I was in school. A protractor, compass, and a ruler, plus a tin snip, gets the job done. The design elements for the stamp are created by hand using small strips of razor-sharp copper. The elements which make up the business end of the stamp are attached to a wood block or metal base. Afterwards, resin is applied to the stamp to stabilize the copper when it's polished. Eventually, a beautiful copper stamp comes to life. Let's take a look at the remarkable process of creating the stamp on video. So here you can see the artist has a design in black and white, and he's using a simple compass to etch on razor sharp copper. He's going to use a tin snips to cut slots in exactly the places where he's etched it. And you can see the beginnings of the stamp at the very bottom right edge of the screen. Those slots will be seated on the copper partially assembled stamp using the slots that he is now cutting. He's opening up the slots so that they seat very easily on the support arms of the copper stamp. Now he's going to flatten it out. And then trim it to size. Making sure the openings are wide enough so that they'll slide on easily. Again, cutting it down to size, matching it up with the sketch to make sure it goes in the right place. And now preparing the stamp. Each one of those little motifs is created by the confluence of many sharp pieces of copper. And there you can see how it's slotted on the supporting structure of the stamp or chap. Making sure it's placed in the right section of the stamp. And there you go. It's seated right where it's supposed to be. Now, this is just to seat one piece of copper. Each stamp calls for dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of sharp pieces of metal that are artfully shaped into the correct position. Once that's done, a handle is fabricated and soldered onto the structure that was created by the artist using those small pieces of copper. Because copper is so expensive, many times the handle is made from another type of metal, in this case tin, because it will conduct heat less than the copper will and make it easier for the person applying the wax to hold on to for long periods of time. And there you can see he's, painting flux in strategic points to get it ready for soldering. Afterwards, the partially assembled stamp is seated in a pot on a blazing fire. Inside the pot is a resin. And the idea is for the resin to infiltrate all the empty spaces and after it's taken out of the pot, the resin will become solid and stabilize all of the fragile design elements created by the relatively soft copper. As you can see in this case, The resin cooled down and has been removed from the pan. And then the technician has to use something, in this case, a piece of charcoal, to smooth out the working elements of the copper so it's not so sharp that it will harm the fabric that it's applied to. And as you can see, the value of the resin and how none of the soft copper elements move when it's being abraded. After the design elements have been abraded, it is placed back in the same pan and placed over a fire so that the now hardened resin liquefies once again and is removed from the stamp. After, it's shook out, we have a finished copper chap. And what you're looking at is SewBatik stamp number 1021 Vine. Once the stamp is ready, we can begin decorating the cloth. In many situations, base colors must be applied to the fabric before it is stamped. To do this, the cloth will be placed on a cement floor in the factory, and the colors are applied by hand. In these slides, you can see several instances where the base colors are being applied. Here you can see this gentleman is using a spatula to make sure that the accent colors are put in the strategically right place. In this case, wherever you see the white points that have been created, those are the places where he is placing this dark blue accent fabric. There you can see a closer view of what he's doing. Occasionally, salts are added to create unique textures and bubbling techniques. After the base color is applied, the cloth is ready for stamping. A padded table is used for stamping, which provides the necessary give to the pressure of the stamp. The wax is melted in an open pan. And you can see the opening on the bottom near the cup where the sterno is inserted and is burning above. The batik printer dips his stamp into the pan until its surface is covered with molten wax and applies the stamp to the cloth. The areas that are covered by the wax will resist the dyes in subsequent dyeing and form the shapes that are engraved into the stamps. So let's just review the process. The stamp was engraved in the shape of butterflies. The fabric was first brought to the dye house in bleach white form. It was hand dyed the shade of blue, and now the batik stamper is applying the wax by dovetailing, by applying firm pressure after the wax, after the stamp has been dipped in the wax and placed firmly on the cloth. He then has to repeat that process, carefully dovetailing the back end of the stamp with the impression that he last applied to the cloth. He has to make sure that there are no gaps, otherwise you'll see the streaking across the fabric when he's done. Here's a close-up view where you can see he's dovetailing the back end of the stamp to where he just applied the wax. Here's another example of the same process. The bleach white fabric was brought to the factory. In the dye house, multicolor blotches of dye were applied to the fabric. The stamp which in this case was engraved in the shape of a flower head, is dipped in the wax. The wax is applied by the batik artist, and the rear end of the stamp must dovetail with the forward image of the previous impression. There's a closer look. You can see it right there. After the wax is removed, anything that is covered by the wax will be visible. Everything else will be overdyed and no longer visible. Let's take a look at some video while we see this process occurring. First impression being applied to the fabric. It'll harden quickly, so it can be hard to the touch. Okay, he dovetails the second impression, so you can barely see them matching up. He moves on to make a further impression. This batik stamper is really moving at a good pace. And what he's producing right now is the bottom panel of a sarong. Look how quickly the wax hardened. He placed his hand on it and there was no smearing at all. And he's so dexterous with this, he can touch up any gaps or defects with the corner of his stamp. This fellow is really good at what he does. Let's see someone else doing the same thing, just a different application. He's making his first impression, this time on the top panel of what will become a sarong, applies the necessary pressure, lifts up, reapplies the wax, and dovetails the back end of the stamp to the impression he just laid down. Lifting up, you cannot see any gaps where the stamps met. And he continues the same process. Depending upon the desired effect, it may be necessary to dye the cloth after stamping. The blending of the dyes and the timing of the dipping are important factors. The dyeing is done in large cement baths. This process is repeated several times, depending upon the colors and the complexity of the design. Here is a video of the overdying being done in a cement hopper. In this instance, the fabric is brought in bundles to the hopper. The dyes are applied one leaf at a time. He waits for the fabric to be saturated and then moves on to another bundle. If you look carefully, you can see the shapes of the motifs, and anything that is covered with wax will resist the dyes that are now being applied. After this process is complete, the wax will be removed, exposing the dyes that are now being applied. Here's that fellow's neighbor. You can see readily the shape of the motifs that were created by the hand stamping. Like the last fellow, he applies the dyes to each leaf in the fabric bundle. He smooths it out to make sure that it's all saturated and advances to the next leaf. When each leaf in that bundle is thoroughly saturated, he will place it on the bar above him and allow it to drip dry, and then he moves on to the next bundle. After the cloth has been dyed, rinsed, and dried, the wax is entirely removed by dipping in hot water. The wax is often saved and reused. The cloth is then washed with a mild detergent and rinsed twice to remove excess dye. After drying in the sun, creases are smoothed out by an electric press and folded. Let's watch this person remove the wax. It's really an important part of the batik making process. This room is open air. There's no ceiling. It's probably about 88 degrees and 90% humidity. And there's a blazing fire underneath this cauldron of near boiling water. That fabric was previously waxed and dyed at least once. He dips his bamboo rod into the water to lift out the now waxless piece of cloth. Now, if you notice, the bottom of that might touch the rim of the cauldron. And that is why sometimes you can see little flakes of wax on the finished batik from us or from any fabric store. It's because he's unable to lift it high enough to always clear the rim of the cauldron that has some accumulated wax on it. Afterwards, this goes on to the quality control folks who use their tools to remove any residual blotches of wax that may have survived the previous process. At this point, the fabric is rolled on tubes, measured, packed, and then brought to the airport or the harbor for shipment to the United States. But now that we have looked at the processing of stamp batik, let's transition to another lesser known method for batik making called hand drawing or batik chanting. Hand drawn batik involves the use of specialized chanting tools by highly skilled batik artists. The chanting is a small copper container with a long, slender spout that resembles the bowl of a pipe. The chanting is filled with molten wax and held like a pen. The main elements of the chanting design are first penciled onto the fabric. The batik artist follows those tracings with the wax that flows from the chanting's tiny downward curving spouts. Many of the designs created by this process are extremely detailed. However, experienced artisans can wax these designs from memory. Batik workers sit on low stools with the cloth they are working on draped over a bamboo frame. Next to them is a simple kerosene stove with a small iron wok that is filled with molten wax. From time to time, the artist blows on the tip of the chanting tool to secure an easy flow of wax. The wax must be hot enough to flow, but not too hot, so it completely empties the small container in an uncontrolled manner. The number of spouts, their widths and endings can be varied to achieve different effects with great precision. Let's look at video showing how the chanting artist goes about making this wonderful fabric. So you can see that there's already molten wax in her chanting tool, and she's applying it to the fabric. Here, she's doing it once again. She's blowing on it to make sure it's not too hot and flows too freely. And this particular artist is following the tracings that are already etched onto the fabric. Another example, closer up, you can see the etchings on the fabric. And the wax is being applied and covering the pencil tracings. Imagine doing this from memory. There are many, many of these folks that don't require the tracing on the cloth. They've been doing it for decades, and their parents were doing it for decades, and likely their progeny will be doing it for decades. Here's another artist with his own unique technique for holding his chanting tool. Again, applying the wax, gently following the tracings. One last video. So the word batik in Javanese means to dot. And you can see the significance of dotting. Each dot will create its own tiny resist when the fabric is subsequently dyed. Anything under the wax will resist subsequent dyes. Anything that is not covered by wax will receive the coloring from the dye stuff that will be over dyed. An amazingly dexterous person can only do this. These slides show examples of batiks created by the chanting method. Look at their detail, look at their colors. These designs could not be duplicated by even the most modern textile producing techniques currently employed in most quote unquote modern textile market mills. These batik fabrics are generally made in approximately 3-yard lengths and take weeks to complete. Because of the labor and the special demand in Indonesia and many other parts of Asia and Europe, these fabrics range in price from $25 to $500 a yard. Quite amazing, don't you think? So I hope you really enjoyed watching that little video about some of the history and methodology behind the 2 basic forms of batik making. I've been around batik making for going on 3 decades, and it just never ceases to amaze me what goes into producing these beautiful fabrics. And if you take nothing else away from watching the video, it's you should just appreciate all the efforts of these very talented folks that participate in the production of batik making, and also understand that batiking is a process. It's not a particular type of fabric, not a particular base cloth, but can be any natural fiber as long as it's capable of being stamped and absorbing dye stuff.
Right, right. No, I just think it's fantastic every time I see it or hear something new about the batik making process. So we are...
I think to emphasize the point that batik making can be done on so many different base fabrics, we'd like to take you through the various base cloths that we are now currently batiking.
Yes. Now we're going to do a little fabric introduction and a little bit of a fashion show. We're going to show you some of our fabrics in the forms that you would be using them in. And the first one that we really want to show you is what we would consider traditionally as a batik cotton for quilting and for putting it on your quilt backing, basically. And so here is a sample of one of the bolts of fabric, and this is the Valhalla motif. Bring that, yeah. You see the little leaves in there? It's really tiny leaves. And the colorway is twilight blue. And if you were going to purchase, let's say you decided your quilt was 100 by 100 or 100 by 108, our 115 inch wide fabric, this is 3 yards. So this would fit one piece for your quilt backing. And that's how small it becomes. But anyway, that is really kind of our first entree into our batik cottons. Now let's show you something. As I say, cotton is not only for quilting, it is also for garments. And this is an apron that we featured, I think it was last fall. And this is the, I think it's a McCall's, no, it's a Simplicity 8186. And it's just a simple apron that you would throw on over your clothes when you're cooking or barbecuing or doing whatever. And so, like I say, our cotton is not only for quilting. Sticking on the theme, I want to stick with that theme for just a little bit for kind of our cotton. This is a sample of our gradations. And this is, it's hard to show this actually without stepping way back, but it's 45 inch wide. It's really a tiny little sample. This colorway is mint. And gradations from our collection, we have about 30 of them. The transition from color from a light shade to a very bold shade or between color families. And they can be used for absolutely anything. We have aprons from them. We have quilts from them. We have so many different things. This is a table runner that I created. Again, I think this was for Valentine's Day last year, actually. And it is, this takes 6 different fabrics, but you get an array of color when you're working with the gradation batik. And when that is produced, Bruce, the gradations from a light to a medium to a dark, that's got to be an interesting technique for how they do that. By hand too. Well,
and for this particular product, the lightest shade is laid down first. So, and then subsequently, you know, darker goes on lighter and so on.
So you're just building in the intensity of the color.
That's correct.
And it's amazing to do that without seeing like so many different separations and to be able to see just that gradual change.
Well, the limitation is that they have to be compatible colors.
Right.
And also you can't do the subsequent, the second, third, or fourth dyeing until the initial dyings are dry. So it takes a while. Otherwise you get mud.
Right. And so here's a shade that we call Hyacinth Violet. I'm going to show you this. We'll hold this out. And one side, one selvage edge is more of a kind of a plum shade, and it goes to a very rich, what do you call this color?
Periwinkle.
Periwinkle. And so in the middle, we have all of these different shade ranges. And so much like the green was from light to dark, this is from color change to color change. And it's just absolutely beautiful. So this is one of our collections that we have as well. And this we call the Nuance Gradation Collection. And that's a separate collection on our website. I think the next substrate that we actually produced with the batik making process is our rayon. And I think it's our largest collection of fabric too, still, I think. This is a top. This is the Quick Sew 3161, and it's a garment. So our rayon is 45 inches wide, very drapey, it's perfect for garments and probably only garments, to be honest with you.
And like all rayon, it really displays color very vibrantly. Yes,
this is the Phoenix motif in the colorway of Lake. And again, this is the Quick Sew 3161. Simple tunic. It can be short length sleeve or long. And we are sitting in front of our collection of jersey knit, and here is one of the most recent tops that I made out of our 72-inch wide batik cotton jersey knit. Do you want to talk a little bit about the jersey knit, Bee?
Well, the jersey itself is 100% cotton. It starts off as a size 40 to a size 50 yarn, and it is on a circular knitting machine first, where it is knitted into a tube. And then that tube is slit open to create a 72-inch wide fabric. The sides are either sewn down or taped to reduce the amount of curling that takes place. And then it's mercerized for additional vibrancy and absorption of dyes, and goes to the batik factory. And then all other processes that you saw with regard to the 45-inch wide cotton batik making process is the same here.
Right, right. So our knit has a little bit of stretch, and I think the point to that is that there isn't a synthetic, there isn't a lycra or anything in it to give it additional stretch. It has to be natural fibers. And so it's about a 20% stretch, and it's just a very stable, light to mid-weight jersey knit. And then we spoke, or last week, I think I shared with you this dress. And this is the McCall's 8064 simple dress, and it takes only 1.5 yards of fabric. And I think that's one of the things that's just really great about our jersey knit too, is the width of it allows us to do a little bit more with less fabric. The next one that I want to share with you is we've talked about cotton, we've talked about gradation, which is cotton, we've talked about rayon, jersey knit, linen. Okay, I am wearing, I forgot about the linen. I am wearing our linen, and this is just a simple top, and this is the Copen Blue hand-dyed shade. Talk about the linen. So the linen,
the fiber is hemp. It is woven, it is spun and then woven at a factory in the city of Bandung, Indonesia. And then it is mercerized and then brought to the batik making factory. And once again, the processes are the same.
Right, right. And it's 54 inches wide, I believe our linen is. So when you're looking at your patterns, anywhere, but you'll see a lot of 45-inch wide fabric requirements, as well as 50-inch or 57-inch wide, 57 or 60-inch wide for the linen as well. And our most recent substrate is canvas. So our canvas is 57 inches wide, and this is a sample of what you can do with canvas in a handbag. And this is one of the fabrics. This is the Violetta in the shade of soft mint. And inside, we coordinated this with our 115-inch wide cotton collection. Everything is interchangeable. So when we work with things, we can work with similar colorways from other fabrics. So the batik cotton plus the batik canvas. And inside is our cotton, which is the phoenix motif in, what is it, rainbow sherbet rainbow.
Rainbow sherbet.
Rainbow sherbet. Just a beautiful coordinate for this beautiful bag. The pattern here is by Annie, and it is night and day. So it comes with this outer tote, as well as the day bag that you can take with you, and one fits inside the other. It is just such an amazing little project, and we're going to talk about this here in a couple of weeks as well. So canvas, and
well, remember, this is made from our first canvas fabric,
right,
our
absolutely,
5-ounce canvas, and coming very shortly is our 8-ounce canvas.
Right, and we announced that actually earlier on an episode with Annie Unrun of By Annie, and we're really excited about the heavier weight canvas. And we want to thank each one of you for commenting and sharing your thoughts on the canvas that we currently have and ideas for how to work with our heavier weight canvas as well. So we're excited about seeing that. And the last thing I really want to share with you from our product groupings and things that we really are focusing on is pre-quilted cotton and canvas. And so here is a sample of a pre-quilted, I gotta get this in the picture here, a pre-quilted jacket. Sorry, B.
No problem.
And this is the Tamarack jacket with a hoodie variation to it. And so what we're doing now is we're taking custom orders for pre-quilting the main fabric and the lining with whatever batting you choose, whether it be a wool or bamboo for a garment, or soft and stable for any of your bag making projects. Not everybody wants to quilt the fabric ahead of time when they're cutting something out or making a project like a jacket or a bag. And so we're here to help you with that if you would like us to. And so those are, I think that pretty much summarizes all the different fabrics that we currently have available and that we are producing regularly throughout the year. And
it really puts a period to paragraph that batik making is a process. It's not just a particular base cloth.
right.
There are still so many other options that we have targeted, and we're going to roll out so many exciting new applications for the batik making process in the future. So stay tuned.
Yes, yeah, we're really excited about that. And the last thing we wanted to talk about too was our impending inventory arrival. So I believe that we have yardage of, actually I should let you are our manager of all of things production. So
Thanks. So I'll get the hate mail.
no, you know this stuff best.
We have pending at the border. We have backings, 115-inch backings arriving, reorder yardage as well as new SKUs. We have linen coming, and we have more canvas. The cavalry is coming. We sold out of our canvas so quickly, and thank you really for so many of you that have been so patient with us while we get the replenishment here in house. We're 2 weeks.
We're thinking 2 weeks, right? Yeah, 2 weeks from now. And so keep following us there. So the minute you see something going from a pre-order to an available, it is in-house, and we will be first, as we always do. The minute it arrives, we do our own inventorying and quality checks on everything to make sure that it is up to the standards that we expect and that you expect. And then we cut all of our back orders first. We get oldest to newest out the door as quickly as we possibly can. We do have a lot of back orders, so it may interrupt a little bit of our current production. We try to do both at the same, our current ordering. So we try to do some of that at the same time, but we will focus on back orders to get them out the door because you guys have been unbelievably patient with us.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we do appreciate it because it takes time to get from Indonesia into the beautiful state of North Dakota.
No, and we want to do our best work. So thank you for giving us the time that we need to do it.
Yeah. So I really enjoy talking about our fabric, and I enjoy talking about what really makes us tick. And so I want to thank you guys for all of your wonderful comments and questions and things like that, and to just reintroduce all that really makes SewBatik SewBatik. And
if I get this right, keep sewing,
smiling,
and sharing.
I like it.